on the rulings of Hajj and Umrah and related matters. First of all, it's an honor to be here, to be doing this webinar, and hopefully those of you are going on Hajj with us on our group with Essential Islam, with Guidance Hub, ISNAD, and Sara International. We hope you are going to benefit from this. For all the Hajis that are watching this, we hope that you take benefit from these webinars and you learn and apply what is being mentioned during your Hajj journey, inshallah ta'ala. So it's a great honor to be a part of this amazing journey of a lifetime. Today's seminar is about Hajj in particular. Who needs to do Hajj? So do you need to do Hajj or not? What are the conditions that make your Hajj valid? So once you've done Hajj, how do you know you've got proper Hajj, what you need to do? And therefore we're going to learn about all the things that we must do as an absolute must, those things which we need to do to complete our Hajj, without which is deficient, and there are expiations required, or you have to make up something to remove that deficiency. And then we'll be talking about things that are recommended or rewarding and that we should try to do in Hajj, but missing them might not be anything taken away from our Hajj, inshallah ta'ala. I would like to also recognize the other teachers that are doing the webinars. They've talked about the virtues of Makkah, of Medina, and the journey of Hajj and the importance of Hajj. And inshallah we'll have future webinars talking about further topics of the Ihram, of actually performing Hajj on a more detailed format, inshallah ta'ala. So first of all, we're going to start off with the conditions that render Hajj obligatory. And at this point I would refer you all to the Essentials of Hajj and Umrah pocket guide, authored and printed by Essential Islam under the guidance of Mufti Wajid Iqbal of Bradford and the Essential Islam team headed by Brother Naveed Hamid. This is going to be given to all of our group members, inshallah ta'ala, so you'll have this with you. If you have this copy right now, I would refer you to page 19, and we're going to be starting and going through page 19. If you don't have a copy of this, don't worry, you can still benefit from today's webinar and you'll still be able to take a lot away, inshallah ta'ala. But I highly recommend this booklet and this guide. It's up to date, 21st century, relevant, easy to follow. The feedback we've had is really good. It's actually sold out, so hopefully we'll be getting more copies printed, and a second print of this edition, inshallah ta'ala, which will be distributed to our Hajj group as mentioned and be available to others as well, inshallah ta'ala. So if you want this or more details on this, then please contact the Essential Islam team either via a YouTube message, comment, or you can go onto their Facebook page and message them through Facebook, or you can go to Instagram, any social media platform, and contact Essential Islam, which are based in Bradford, inshallah ta'ala. So on page 19 we're going to talk about when does Hajj become obligatory. So when do you have to make Hajj as a Muslim, in other words. So first of all, Hajj is one of those acts of worship which is only required once in a lifetime. Fasting is yearly, zakat is yearly, prayer is daily, 5 times a day. There's other obligations that come and go. Hajj is a once in a lifetime obligation. So when do you have to perform this once in a lifetime obligation? And the word for obligation in Arabic is fard. For those of you who don't know these terminologies, we'll be breaking them down for you, and they are broken down in the book as well. Very easy to kind of understand the terminology and work through this book, inshallah ta'ala. So fard are the absolute obligations. All the pillars of Islam are fard, but with conditions. Not everybody has to pray, not everybody has to fast, not everybody has to give zakat. There are conditions that one has to kind of fulfill, and prerequisites that one must be accomplished before one has to actually do the act of worship. So for Hajj, let's go through that now. First of all, you have to be a Muslim. Hajj is only obligatory on Muslims. Second of all, like all acts of worship, you have to reach the level of, or the age of, puberty or maturity. So hence Hajj is not fard on a child, right? So if you are taking children on Hajj with you at the age of 9, 10 years of age, it doesn't count as a Hajj because they're not actually required to perform the Hajj. So when they're older, they will need to go again to perform Hajj if they meet the following criteria. The third condition here mentioned is sanity or basically intellect. You need to be somebody of sane mind and not have any uh, mental illnesses that cloud over the mind completely. So there are people in our communities and so forth that just don't have awareness of what's going on around them, and they're in a different kind of level of um, mental capabilities. Those people don't have to perform any of the obligations. They don't have to fast. They don't have to pray. They won't have to perform Hajj as well. They can be taken on Hajj. So all the people we're mentioning or taking out here can go on Hajj if they want, or they're taken by a family member on Hajj is perfectly fine. But they don't have to go, or they may never have to go for this condition. Obviously, if it's a permanent condition, then no, this individual will never have to perform Hajj. But if they're taken on Hajj, it's a blessing and they will receive goodness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Financial security. So obviously you must possess the funds to go on Hajj. You must have the means not only to go on Hajj, but also there should be enough funds that you leave behind to look after your family for the duration of the trips. If you're going for a month, then you need enough wealth to go there, stay there, cover your costs, come back, and in the same time for that absence, there should be enough, if you have dependents, of course, for your family to be able to maintain themselves until you return to them. And of course, anything that's needed and there should be other things facilitated for them. So if they need somebody to help them, you don't leave them alone, you leave them with someone. Then it says timing, which is basically that Hajj time has to occur for you to go on Hajj. You can't make Hajj in whatever time you want. You need to be able to get there. So you may have the money, you may have the physical capability, and you may even have everything else in place, but there's no route to Mecca. And often in the past, and I say often, it did actually occur often, the paths were too dangerous to travel upon. They were blocked off by people hostile to Muslims and Islam. Throughout history, if you read history, it wasn't always safe or possible to go on Hajj from certain areas. So sometimes the route from Egypt was blocked, or sometimes the route from the east and Iraq was blocked, etc. History has its incidents. Today for us, basically it's a case of, if you can get a visa and go, you have to go. And if you can't get the visa and you can't get entry, and they're going to deny you entry, then Hajj isn't obligatory on you to perform, right? To perform. And the last condition mentioned here, which I think is good to mention, is to know that Hajj is obligatory if you are a convert to Islam. If you're born Muslim, then everybody who grows up as a Muslim knows that Hajj is obligatory once in a lifetime, and you wouldn't need to know that for Hajj to become obligatory on you. But for a convert to Islam, the ruling is actually that if the convert doesn't know Hajj is obligatory, somebody new to Islam, until let's say 5 years of being a Muslim or even 10 years of being a Muslim, then they weren't obliged to do Hajj until they found out. Right, so this is important. So somebody who's new to Islam and doesn't know Hajj is an obligation, there's no expiation for that. There's no worries about that. Soon as they find out Hajj is an obligation, coupled with all the other conditions that we mentioned, then that individual must now make the Hajj. So those are basically the requirements for becoming obliged to perform the Hajj. We're not talking about going and doing Hajj. You're saying you're sitting at home, whether you're in the UK or Europe or the US or in Asia somewhere, and you're like, do I need to go on Hajj? Am I somebody that Allah has tasked with Hajj, and you want to ask this question and you want an answer and you need the answer? It's an obligation. If you fulfill what we've just discussed, from being a Muslim, maturity, sanity, having the financial capability with its conditions, with its details that we mentioned, you're able to make the journey there and back, that's facilitated, and the time of Hajj is there upon you, and during that time you can go, then yes, you're somebody that must make the pilgrimage. It's an obligation on you now, and you must make that sacrifice and take the time out of your life to obey Allah and this command of making the pilgrimage to Makkah al-Mukarramah and the surrounding areas to perform the rites of Hajj. So that's something that you should all reflect upon and think about, and therefore make a decision whether you need to go on Hajj or not. After making that decision or making that review of yourself, and you take the decision to, I have to make Hajj, it's an obligation upon me because I fulfill the criteria, the prerequisites, then we need to now figure out whether you actually have to go on Hajj. It's like, it might sound weird, but I have to perform it, but I don't have to go and do it. What does that mean? Let me give you the example of fasting first to clarify this. In Ramadan, we have to fast the month of Ramadan, but sometimes we can't actually fast that day of Ramadan for a reason. For instance, you're too ill to fast, right? You got a sickness, you've got you're just not able to fast for whatever reason. Then what you will do is you will not fast, but you have to make up the fast after Ramadan. Similarly, a traveler, for instance, a traveler is not required to fast in Ramadan. Somebody who's spending a few days abroad or whatever, in that time, do they have to fast? No, they don't. So they miss the fasts. They have to make them up after Ramadan. So fasting was an obligation for the whole of Ramadan. But for some days, due to an excuse, due to not having the ability, you didn't fast, then you have to make those fasts up. The same applies to Hajj. You fulfill those criteria of having to perform Hajj. Now you look at yourself at the time of Hajj. Can I make the journey to Hajj? Yes or no? If you can make the journey and you can fulfill the following criteria, the following is in place, then you also have to go and do the Hajj. Now, if you can't do these things because of fulfill the following criteria, then what happens is Hajj is still an obligation on you, meaning it's still something you have to do, but you can't do it this year, just like you can't fast that day for a reason. Similarly, you can't do Hajj this year for a reason, then you'll wait till next year. And next year you look at these following conditions and criteria. Can I fulfill them this year? If you can, then you'll make Hajj that year. Right? So the following are not required for Hajj to become an obligation. They're required for Hajj to be performed. So becoming an obligation is just a case of you have to do it, not that you're going to do it. Performing is now when you're going out physically doing the act of worship. So what are these? They make sense when we read into these conditions. So it says here on page 20 of the booklet, Hajj becomes binding upon an individual when the following conditions are met. Becomes binding to perform. It's already an obligation on you to do, but now do I have to perform it this year or not? The first year I have an opportunity. It says, number one, if you have sound health. Number two, the route to Makkah and Mukarramah is safe. Number three, for a lady to be free of her iddah period. So if she's divorced and in iddah during the Hajj time, she can't go on Hajj. She has to do her iddah, which is the waiting period after divorce. Right? She has to stay in the home that she was divorced. While every Haji, every person performing Umrah as well, when they go into Ihram, pronounces the Talbiyah. This is the statement of saying, at your service, O my Lord, at your service, there's only one God, here without partner. Surely all praise and blessings are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, etc. This is the Talbiyah. You have to pronounce this loudly for men and quietly for ladies to start the Ihram. And then it says fulfilling. So how do I know at the end of Hajj I've got Hajj valid? You've done your Ihram at the beginning. You went into Hajj with Ihram and you performed the two obligations of Hajj. What are the two obligations of Hajj? Number one, standing in Arafat. Being in Arafat at any time from midday of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. The 9th of Dhul Hijjah is the second day of Hajj. The first day of Hajj you go to Mina. We're going to talk about the ruling regarding all the other things, but that isn't an absolute obligation. So if you miss that, you haven't missed Hajj. But if you miss Arafat, you've missed Hajj. So on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, you have to be in Arafat from at any point. You don't have to be there all the time. To be there all the time, we're going to talk about later. But at just one point, you have to be in Arafat between midday of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah all the way until the dawn of the next day, which is the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. So during that time period, several hours, a long time, you have to go to Arafat. And you have to spend a moment within the boundaries of Arafat for the first pillar of Arafat, the first fard, the first obligation of Hajj to be performed. The second pillar, the second thing that you must do to have a valid and complete Hajj is to perform the Tawaf of Hajj, which is known as either Tawaf al-Ziyara as we have it here, and the other name of it is, which is mentioned in some books, you may have read it. It may be referred to as Tawaf al-Ifada as well, if you've come across this term. Tawaf al-Ziyara or Tawaf al-Ifada or the Tawaf of Hajj, the Fard Tawaf. This will be done after Arafat. So you have to do Arafat on the next day, on the 12th, on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. When you leave Arafat, you go to Muzdalifah, and you then go to Mina, etc. You need to now perform the tawaf of Hajj. So you perform the 10th, the 11th, or the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. You'll have a few days. You've got time to do this obligatory tawaf. You've got a lifetime to do it actually, but you should be done within the in 2 or 3 days of Hajj time. And once you've done that, you know that whatever else happens, your questions and tell you, yep, don't worry, it's okay, this is what happens, don't worry, you'll have to do this. Yes, unfortunately, you'd have to give a sacrifice, a dam, to make up for this mistake, or this, you missed out something that should have been done, or you added something that shouldn't have been done. So it's very important, because this is a journey of a lifetime. You said it's a once in a lifetime obligation. You don't want to cut yourself short, because that's who you're going to be harming if you don't learn about Hajj, if you don't go and do a good Hajj. So I would highly recommend our group or other groups. And if you're from other groups, make sure you do have teachers and knowledgeable people that guide you through the Hajj, and they're on hand to answer your questions and queries and advise you. So it's not just about making sure we've got the obligations. As we're going to learn now, we want to get the best out of our Hajj. So we need to complete our Hajj and get all the extra things as well. So on page 22 of the booklet, and again, you don't have to have the booklet to be able to learn all of this, but please do make note of these things. You have to give a sacrifice, or something that you'll have to explain. What did you miss? What was wrong with your Hajj? What was deficient? And accordingly, you'll have to perform some forms of atonement and expiation to complete your Hajj, right? So this is something that we'll talk about as we go along, inshallah ta'ala. So for now, we're going to talk about those things that everyone in Hajj is going to perform together. And we should perform it in this way, and you should all be making a note of this and remembering on Hajj, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, so you don't miss it. If you miss it, there's going to be some consequences to that. Back and start your ihram from there. If you're not going to go back, then you've not adhered to a wajibat of Hajj. What do? Pay a penalty, which we'll talk about later. It says wuquf in Arafat until Maghrib. So we said you got to go after aspects of Hajj, and needs to be atoned for and a penalty paid. So make sure you stay, and everyone will, of course, and nobody leaves. In general, nobody leaves until Maghrib Salah time happens. Once Maghrib time, sunset occurs, everyone either walks to, some people, meaning the minority, walk to Muzdalifah. The majority wait for their coach, their bus, and then they make the journey to Muzdalifah, where they pray Maghrib. So you don't even pray Maghrib in Arafat. You just wait until Maghrib time enters, and you leave and go to Muzdalifah. So it's wajib to stay until Maghrib. You can stay longer as well, but it's wajib to stay until Maghrib. And you can leave at any point after Maghrib time and arrive in Muzdalifah. So you'll be going from Arafat to Muzdalifah. And inshallah, we'll be talking about the whole journey of Hajj and practically how it works, on the day-to-day basis of Hajj in future webinars as well. This is just to kind of get you an idea of what elements of Hajj are required, or obligation, as you mentioned, I can't leave out kind of thing. And then when we go through the Hajj as a whole journey, you'll see how they fit in at every stage, inshallah ta'ala. And then it says wuquf in the plains of Muzdalifah. So you have to go to Muzdalifah as a wajib. So if you miss Muzdalifah out, what's the ruling? Penalty has to be paid. And to do it deliberately is sinful. Like we said, you can't just ignore these things. So everybody will go to Muzdalifah. All of the Hajis, 99.99%, will be there. Some might not make it, some might have excuses, whatever reason. That's not what we want to do. We want to make sure we perform Hajj properly, and we will go to Muzdalifah after Maghrib time has entered on that night of the 9th of, it'll actually become the 10th, because in Islamic terms, the lunar calendar, etc., the day starts after Maghrib. So the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which was Arafat, ends at Maghrib. It becomes the 10th of Dhul Hijjah technically, and the night has started, Maghrib time started. On that time, you will make your way to Muzdalifah. Stay at Muzdalifah is, even for a short period of time, is a wajib, and this has to be from Fajr time onwards. So you may arrive at Maghrib time, you may arrive at Isha time. Some people will arrive 2 a.m., 3 a.m. They'll take a long time because they're waiting for their coaches. Practicality, you're going to wait a long time for your coach. If you're lucky to get on the first or second or third one, you'll get to Muzdalifah early. If you might get there early and there'll be hardly anybody there, you might get there like 2, 3, 4 a.m. and it'll be a sea of bodies, right? That's just timing and practicalities of Hajj, which you'll pick up and learn as we go through these webinars. But in terms of actually when you have to be there, the time you have to be in Muzdalifah is Fajr time. So as long as you're there Fajr time, that's Muzdalifah now. And at Fajr time, you pray a Fajr Salah, and you'll have arrived at Maghrib time. Maghrib and Isha is prayed, but you'll stay till Fajr. Fajr time enters, you'll pray your Fajr, and that's the time to make dua. That's time to your Muzdalifah. Then you'll move on from Muzdalifah back to Mina, inshallah ta'ala. So that's another act which is wajib. This is not the order of actions necessarily. Some of it is, as you can see, but they're just all acts within the whole of Hajj that are wajib, meaning they are needed to complete our Hajj, and missing them requires a penalty. You see, I'm repeating that because I want to get the message clear. This is not an option. They must be done, and there's no case of, oh, I'll do the penalty. No, we must do this. It says here stoning of the Jamarat during the days of Nahr and Tashriq. So terminology, right? So stoning, first of all, is picking up these small pebbles, which you'll pick up again in Muzdalifah. So those kind of things we'll talk about later when it comes to the sunnahs of Hajj. The sunnah is to pick up these pebbles from Muzdalifah. You'll pick up 49 or 70 pebbles, small gravel pebbles, and some people put them in a bottle, some people have a plastic bag, a zipped bag or something, and then they take it with them and they keep them there. It's recommended to wash them. These are rulings of picking up the stones, which will be mentioned. But when you come to the Jamarat, the days, so on the 10th you'll stone one of them, and then 11th and 12th and possibly 13th you'll stone all three of these Jamarat. All the stonings, whether it's 7 stonings or 10, right? So if you stay an extra day, you do the extra stoning of each of the Jamarat. So Jamarat, in terminology, Jamarat are these big stone pillars. There are 3 of them. There's the small one, Sughra, the Wusta, and the Kubra. Small, medium, large. During Hajj, you'll be stoning at least 7 times. So on the first day, you just do the large one, just 7 stones, 7 times each one. Every stoning is 7 throws. Every tawaf is 7 times. Every sa'i is 7 times. So each throwing is 7. On the first day, you do 7 on the 10th. When you go on the 11th, you'll do all 3. So you do 7 on the first one, 7 on the second one, 7 on the third one, 21. Second day which will be the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, 7 on the first one, 7 on the second one, 7 on the 8th one, 21. So in total you will stone a minimum of 21 plus 21 plus 7, 49 times. And some people do, and it's recommended to stay a third day or a 4th day technically, and a fourth day of stoning, then you will throw another 7, 7, 7, making a total of 70 stones, right? And therefore it's recommended to collect 70 in Muzdalifah, right? You'll definitely be using 49 of them, and you'll have some spares as well. And if you happen to stay for an extra day, then you've got the extra 21 to stone on that final day. Somebody might ask, what if I haven't got my stones? What do I do? This, that, the other. I forgot about this, and nobody told me. This is why we're learning for. This is why it's good to have good company in Hajj and people around you to educate you, to guide you, show you step by step what to do. So again, I'd highly recommend going with the groups that show you this, and not just a group that's booking a Hajj or something like this. Go, and most Hajj groups, alhamdulillah, they do give you guidance. They do have classes and seminars, and hopefully these webinars are something that everyone can benefit from, inshallah ta'ala. So during those days, you'll stone the Jamarat. Every stoning of the Jamarat, or 7 of them, are wajib. The final 3 are sunnah. It says giving qurbani for Hajj Tamattu and Hajj Qiran. So there's 2 types of Hajj, which we'll talk about later, inshallah. There's Hajj Tamattu and Hajj Qiran. Whichever Hajj you're doing, there's Hajj Ifrad as well, which is for the residents of Makkah. So we didn't talk about that. None of us are residents or going to be residents. If you are, then you should learn about Hajj Ifrad. But most of us, vast majority, those watching this webinar, will travel in from abroad and make Hajj Tamattu and Hajj Qiran. And the one basic difference between them is that in Hajj Qiran, you remain in Ihram from the time you put it on until the time in Hajj you take it off. So you'll only be in one Ihram throughout Hajj. When you take it off, that's it. In Hajj Tamattu, these are just terminologies that refer to a different type of Hajj, where you arrive with Ihram and you perform an Umrah and you take off your Ihram. Then you come into a second Ihram for Hajj, and again during your Hajj you'll take off your Ihram, and then you'll be remain out ihram. So there's two ihrams for Hajj Tamattu. There's one ihram for Hajj Qiran. And the scholars differ which is the better form of. You have a choice which one you want to perform and how you want to keep your ihram on or take it off and have two. And fasting is recommended with Hajj Qiran as well. But for both, a sacrifice is wajib, meaning you should take a sacrifice and you must perform a sacrifice of a sheep or a animal of such, like a goat as well, of such stature. Then it says shaving or trimming your head within the haram boundaries. The sunnah is to perform this in Mina. So shaving or trimming, obviously shaving is only for men, and trimming is both for men and women if they don't decide, the men don't decide to shave. One of the two must be done for men and trimming must be done for women. Again, the exact rules and so forth are to be discussed inshallah ta'ala, but this is a wajib. And this is to be done at a certain time as well. There's an order of doing things in Hajj as well, which is wajib to maintain. So we're going to talk about that order as well. It says here to say sunnah to in Mina. So it's wajib to do shorten at some point, which we'll talk about. But it's a sunnah to do in Mina. Most of people will actually end up doing it close to their hotels where the barbers are. That's not likely to be in Mina. If you can be in Mina, that's fine. It's a sunnah. But anywhere is fine. Near your hotel, at barbers, outside at Mina. It could be near Makkah somewhere, near the Haram, the Masjid al-Haram, etc. But shaving or trimming, it can be done inside, and somebody could do it for you. And for ladies, they can do it themselves if they hold it and cut it, etc. The rulings of shaving and trimming are to be discussed. And then it says offer qurbani with the haram boundaries. That's a wajib. So you can't offer qurbani anywhere in the world. You have to offer the qurbani in the haram boundaries, right? So if you were to get a diagram, you'd see this diagram where the haram territory, the sacred territory in Makkah and around Makkah. It's not just Makkah, it's Makkah, Arafat, Mina, Muzdalifah, and even surrounding areas. They call the haram. In those areas, there's special rules. Within those areas is a slaughterhouse that they have currently in the haram in that region of the Hijaz, modern day Saudi Arabia. And your sacrifice will take place there. You can go and witness it. I believe there is a way of getting there and witnessing and so forth. And some Hajj group leaders and people that do go, they do go and witness and they do facilitate it. But normally in today's day and age, it's done for you. You're not necessarily there witnessing it, and then you'll get a message or a phone call or your group leader will update you that all our group's qurbani have been done. There was 50 people in our group. 50 qurbanis have been done for this group on your name that you will have to pay for, etc. It's an obligation on you to sort that out. And most Hajj companies and facilitators tend to leave it to the Hajis, or they say we'll do it for you for an additional cost. So often the sacrifice is not built into the actual Hajj itself, the Hajj package, right? So just be aware of that your qurbani is something you need to get done. And the best way is to speak to your Hajj operator. If you're from our group, please do speak to Hajj operators to make sure that you get your qurbani done as well, because you will be performing Hajj Tamattu or Hajj Qiran, and you have a choice. And when we're there and we get close to Hajj and the days of Hajj, we'll discuss it with you. And some members of the group will decide to Hajj Qiran, and some members of the group will decide to Hajj Tamattu. That's a decision individually everyone has to make, and it's not a problem. But you will all have to do a sacrifice. So please do communicate about that and get that sorted, inshallah ta'ala. It says stoning Jamra Aqaba before shaving or trimming the head. So the order we talked about before, you have to stone the Jamarat and then you can shave. And this is on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, the one day when you just have one stoning. You do the 7 stones, that's it, you're done. And it's the biggest one, the last one. And then after that, you can go and shave your head. You can't shave before. So shaving the head has to occur after having performed the first stoning on the 10th, or on the only stoning on that day of the 10th of the Hijjah of the large Jamarat or Jamara. And then you can shave your head. It says performing tawaf al-ziyarah. So the tawaf we talked about, that fard tawaf al-ziyarah, is a wajib to perform it on the 10th, the same day as you shaved your head and you did the stoning. The 11th, so you can perform it the day after, or the 12th, and you can shave the day after as well. The stoning has to be done on that day, but the shaving and the tawaf can be delayed by a day or two. It should be done within those days, of course. And you must have performed your stoning to actually go and do your tawaf as well. So tawaf can be done on the 11th, 12th, or 13th of Dhul Hijjah. It's a wajib. Somebody might ask a question, I thought it was a fard. Yeah, it's a fard to do it. But what if you did it on the 15th of Dhul Hijjah? You got delayed, you were ill, you couldn't actually walk around. But on the 5th, you did it outside of those 3 days. So you've done your tawaf, you've got the fard of Hajj, but you missed a wajib, which was to do it in the 3 allotted days of Hajj or of the tawaf ziyarah, the 10th, 11th, and 12th, and therefore you have to make it pay a penalty and atonement. Expiation is required. So this is why we're learning about how to do a proper and complete Hajj. And this, by the way, like I said, in our group will be discussed with you, and we'll be taking you for the Hajj ziyarah. It's a difficult journey, by the way. People don't understand. You're in Mina. You get all the way from Mina to Mecca, because the tawaf is in Mecca. That's a several kilometers journey. Are there going to be coaches? Are there going to be taxis? How do we get back from this journey to all the way to the tents in Mina? Where are our hotels? How does it all work? Then inshallah we'll be guiding you through this journey step by step, inshallah, for trying to facilitate this to make it as smooth as possible. Nothing's easy in Hajj, but we can make it smoother or smooth as possible with the permission of Allah Ta'ala. Then it says performing sa'i of tawaf ziyarah. So when you perform this tawaf, after this tawaf, it's a wajib to go and now do the sa'i from Safa to Marwa and back, and do that. Or actually, Safa to Marwa is 1, Marwa to back to Safa is 2, and do a total of 7 journeys, right? And you start in Safa and end up in Marwa. It says start sa'i from Mount Safa. So of course this will be obvious, nobody will be doing this, but it's actually wajib to start from Safa and turn to the Kaaba, salute the Kaaba. These are sunnahs we talk about later. What to do in all these situations is important. And then make your way to Marwa. It's a straight lane that you walk down. Everybody's doing this, and it can get quite hectic and very busy in Hajj. So they have a couple of floors. I think they've got 3 floors maybe, where you can do your sa'i on. You may be sent to this first floor. They might close off the first ground floor, etc. Don't worry, whatever floor you are on, it's the same journey between Safa and Marwa that you do, and that is will be a wajib of Hajj. It says performing tawaf al-wada. So there's another tawaf you have to do, which isn't an obligation. It's a wajib, which is necessary, and missing it therefore requires a penalty. And this is called tawaf al-wada. And tawaf al-wada actually has no time. Tawaf al-wada by the way means the tawaf of farewell, the farewell tawaf, the goodbye tawaf. So when would you do that? When you leave Makkah. So you've done your Hajj, everything. So it's actually the last act of Hajj. The very, very last act you would perform when doing Hajj before you leave Makkah is go and do a tawaf. It doesn't have to be the moments before you leave. It could be half an hour before you leave, yes. It could be half a day or even a whole 24 hours before you leave. We should try to make it one of the last actions before you leave for Medina, if you're going to Medina or back to your country or wherever you're going. You're leaving Makkah, you finished your Hajj. The last act would be to perform this tawaf. Okay, so wajib from the tawaf of wada. So starting each tawaf from Hajar al-Aswad, of course, is wajib to start from that point. If you start earlier or later, if you start earlier, it's not a problem, but you should really start at that point. If you start it after, it doesn't actually count as a round. So if you start it at the next corner, it doesn't count as a round. You'd have to go back to Hajar al-Aswad and start from there. So really, to do it from there is very, very important. And they marked where the Hajar al-Aswad, you can see the black stone. Hajar al-Aswad is a black stone, and there's a green light that's all the way across. It's quite visible, and you'll be taught that and shown that, inshallah ta'ala. Of course, you've got to perform each tawaf with wudu. So wudu is a prerequisite, and you must be in wudu. It's not absolute fard, meaning if you're not in wudu, can you get away with it? Yes, but you don't want to be doing that and belittling your Hajj and performing expiations and paying off kind of thing, your mistakes. You want to do it in wudu, and of course covering yourself. And why is that mentioned? You got to cover yourself because in the past, in the pre-Islamic times, they used to perform tawaf naked. It's mentioned in the Quran itself, and this was prohibited, of course. So it's mentioned here, you'll cover yourself because it's just not on. And alhamdulillah, we're 1400 years on from that time where there was tawaf being done naked, but the ruling is still mentioned in the books. This is completing the wajib rounds of tawaf as ziyarah. So tawaf as ziyarah, going back to that tawaf, is 7 rounds. Every tawaf is 7 rounds. To perform the first 4 rounds, the majority of the tawaf is a fard. So you could get away with missing the last 3. Yes, you pay an expiation, but really performing all 7 is a wajib. So first 4 fard, the 5th, 6th and 7th round are wajibat, meaning if you fell short for whatever reason, you could get away with it, yes. But like I said at the very beginning of this section, we're not gonna miss these things out, or all it's saying really is if you happen not to be able to do it, or you miss out on it, or you make a mistake on it, there's a way of getting out of it, which is paying a penalty. Whereas prior to this chapter, when we said the absolute minimum of a Hajj were 3 things: ihram, Arafat and this tawaf, then there's no way of getting away from that. If you don't do them, there's no Hajj. Okay, if you don't do these things, then there is Hajj, but deficient. Now, who wants to present a deficient Hajj to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Nobody. So let's make our Hajj complete. Perform the wajibat. So make sure all seven, and it's a natural thing, everybody's going to perform all 7 rounds of every tawaf they ever do in their lives. It says males are not to wear stitched clothing, right? So no, during ihram, it's a rule of ihram that you don't wear stitched clothing for men. For ladies, it doesn't apply. They can wear stitched clothing. For men, they have 2 plain pieces of cloth. There are different types of ihram in terms of the material, but as long as it's a cloth, some are woolen, some are towel ihram, some are cotton. As long as it's 2, cotton is the best. That's what the Prophet used. As long as there's 2 pieces of cloth that are not stitched, they cover your aura, your body, your tawaf, and your Hajj and your ihram is valid. And if you wear on top of that though a shirt or a jacket or something stitched, then be careful. There are some exceptions that are like necessities, such as keeping a money belt. It may have stitching in it, but obviously that's a necessity to keep that there. Some people can't hold on to their ihram. It's very difficult for them. It keeps them falling off, and there's danger of exposure. Those people are allowed to have safety pins to kind of help their ihram stay on. For men, this is the case for those that are not accustomed to those type of garments. Then safety pins are allowed for those necessities. If you're somebody who's confident and you can tie it up and there's no problems, then there's no need for safety pins. For those who are not, and it could result in some kind of exposure incident, then it's better to have safety pins, right? These are practical things that you can discuss with the teachers on the group and with those that are around you, and inshallah we'll be talking about on a practical level for each individual, maybe because everyone's got their own situation as well. This is general kind of rulings, but inshallah we will be on hand to look after everyone as an individual as well, inshallah ta'ala. So don't worry if you have individual things. Always, outside of the webinar and the learning, you should always go to the teachers and ask them. Then it says males are to ensure their heads and faces are uncovered even during prayer. So obviously faces uncovered is obvious, but head uncovered, yes, during tawaf and during ihram you should make sure your head is uncovered. After ihram is relieved, then you don't have to cover your head. This is a ruling of ihram, right? So if you don't do that, there's a violation. And again, how if I cover my head for 2 seconds, or I did put my ihram over my head, is that okay? How long do I have to? So yes, you can't cover your head when going to sleep. Don't cover your head with a blanket. You got to leave it exposed, etc. So what happens if I cover it? What if I cover it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Again, these discussions will come when you come to the rulings of ihram. So this is a ruling of ihram. Women are to ensure their heads are covered, of course, at all times, in and outside of ihram, head covered, but their faces must remain uncovered in ihram. Covering the face outside of ihram in everyday life is a ruling that differs, and some prefer it, some don't. Some scholars have required it, some recommended it, some didn't require it, etc. It's a discussion. But covering the head outside of in any form of any time of life for a lady in public is there's no question of that. But in Hajj time, keeping the face uncovered is also required for all females. There's no covering the face in Hajj time. Then it says refraining from actions such as openly sinning, arguing, causing trouble. These won't require a monetary expiation, but of course these are wajib to obviously avoid, so you must avoid them, and they will make your Hajj deficient, and there's no real way of making up for this deficiency. If you're going to be immoral, if you're going to be arguing, you're going to be not doing things properly, then please make sure you do tawbah. This is very